So, Hare Krishna, dear devotees. It's wonderful to be with you on this Sunday morning. It's also Mother's Day today, as I'm sure many of you know. Changing of the clocks. So last night we changed the clocks, so we're an hour earlier, daylight saving hours. But today is Mother's Day. So it's like to have a nice opportunity to say, let us remember and honor all our mothers in our congregation and all our mothers. We all have mothers, with us or past. Srila Prabhupada famously said that the nearest thing to spiritual love is the love of a mother for her child. And as devotees, we want to see everyone as the children of Lord Krishna, everyone, spiritual sparks, parts and parcels of Krishna. So in one sense, we're mothers and fathers of everyone. So we like to offer all our mothers a great love, because it is the most selfless love. That's why Srila Prabhupada said the love of a mother is the most selfless. So in Bhagavad-Gita also, Krishna says that we should honor and respect, give honor and respect to superiors like the mother and the father. We owe a debt of gratitude to them for all their selfless care and love. So, Vanchakalpatrubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna. So, before we recite the Srimad Bhagavatam, we usually do some prayers of invocation. So taken from the Srimad Bhagavatam itself. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Nara Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavati sevaya bhagavati utma shloke bhakti bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So the great importance of reading and studying Srimad Bhagavatam is given in the Bhagavatam itself. So we're reading from Canto 1, Chapter 10, starting with text number 20. So I don't know if Karuna Chaitanya is going to put it up on the screen, or if he already has. I'm not sure. If not, we can follow with our books. Yeah? And okay, screen sharing is there. So please forgive me, my Sanskrit is not so good, but I will try my best. Even if properly heard and chanted, these verses, it's said in Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I will read the Sanskrit and the English for the three verses, 20, 21, and 22, and the purports also, and then we'll move on into a discussion about those verses. Anyonyam ashit sanjalpa uttama shloka chetasam kauravendra purashtrinam sarvashruti manoharaha. Absorbed in the thought of the transcendental qualities of the Lord who is sung in select poetry. The ladies on the roofs of all the houses of Hastinapur began to talk of him. This talk was more attractive than the hymns of the Vedas. Purport by His Divine Loving Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. In the Bhagavad-Gita, it is said that in all the Vedic literatures, the goal is the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Factually, the glories of the Lord are depicted in such literature as the Vedas, Ramayana, and Mahabharata. And in the Bhagavatam, they are specifically mentioned in respect to the Supreme Lord. Therefore, while the ladies on the tops of the houses in the capital of the kings of the Kuru dynasty were talking about the Lord, their talk was more pleasing than the Vedic hymns. Anything sung in the praise of the Lord is Shruti mantra. There are songs of Thakur Narottam Das, one of the acharyas in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, composed in simple Bengali language. But Thakur Vishwanath Chakravarti, another very learned acharya of the same Sampradaya, has approved the songs by Thakur Narottam Das to be as good as Vedic mantras. And this is so because of the subject matter. The language is immaterial, but the subject matter is important. The ladies, who were all absorbed in the thought and actions of the Lord, developed the consciousness of Vedic wisdom by the grace of the Lord. And therefore, although such ladies might not have been very learned scholars in Sanskrit or otherwise, still, whatever they spoke was more attractive than the Vedic hymns. The Vedic hymns in the Upanishads are sometimes indirectly directed to the Supreme Lord. But the talks of the ladies were directly spoken of the Lord, and thus they were more pleasing to the heart. The ladies' talks appeared to be more valuable than the learned Brahmana's benedictions. And then we'll read Canto 1, Chapter 10, Text 21. Sarvai kilayam purusha puratano ya eka ashid avishesha atmani agre gunebhyo jagat atmanishware nimilitatman nishisupta shaktishu. Translation. They said, here he is, the original personality of Godhead, as we definitely remember him. He alone existed before the manifested creation of the modes of nature, and in him only, because he is the Supreme Lord, all living beings merge as if sleeping at night, their energy suspended. Purport. There are two types of dissolution of the manifested cosmos. At the end of every 4,320,000 solar years, excuse me, I might have said those amount of years wrong, so please forgive me if I did, because I find it very difficult to understand these great calculations of numbers. So it says it there. I think it's 4,320,000 solar years when Brahma, the Lord of one particular universe, goes to sleep, there is an annihilation. And at the end of Lord Brahma's life, which takes place at the end of Brahma's 100 years of age in our calculation, at the end of 8,640 million times 30 times 12 times 100 solar years. There is complete annihilation of the entire universe. And in both the periods, both the material energy, called the Mahatattva, and the marginal energy, called Jiva Tattva, merge in the person of the Supreme Lord. The living beings remain asleep within the body of the Lord until there is another creation of the material world. And that is the way of the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the material manifestation. The material creation is effected by the interaction of the three modes of material nature set in action by the Lord, and therefore it is said here that the Lord existed before the modes of material nature were set in motion. In the Shruti mantra, it is said that only Vishnu, the Supreme Lord, existed before the creation, and there was no Brahma, no Shiva or other demigods. Vishnu means the Mahavishnu, who is lying on the causal ocean. By his breathing, only all the universes are generated in seeds and gradually develop into gigantic forms with innumerable planets within each and every universe. The seeds of universes develop into gigantic forms in the way seeds of a banyan tree develop into numberless banyan trees. This Mahavishnu is the plenary portion of the Lord Sri Krishna, who is mentioned in the Brahma Samhita as follows. And this is taken from Brahma Samhita 5:48, actually. It says 58 here, but it's actually 48. I wonder what it says there. Anyway, can't see. So this is the Brahma Samhita. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the original personality of Godhead Govinda, whose plenary portion is the Mahavishnu. All the Brahmas, the heads of the universes, live only for the period of his exhaling. After the universes are generated from the pores of his transcendental body. Thus, Govinda, or Lord Krishna, is the cause of Mahavishnu also. The ladies talking about this Vedic truth must have heard it from authoritative sources. An authoritative source is the only means of knowing about transcendental subject matter definitely. There is no alternative. The merging of the living beings into the body of Mahavishnu takes place automatically at the end of Brahma's 100 years. But that does not mean that the individual living being loses his identity. The identity is there. And as soon as there is another creation by the supreme will of the Lord, all the sleeping, inactive living beings are again let loose to begin their activities in the continuum of past different spheres of life. It is called Suptotita Nyaya, or awakening from sleep and again engaging in one's respective continuous duty. When a man is asleep at night, he forgets himself, what he is, what his duty is, and everything of his waking state. But as soon as he awakens from slumber, he remembers all that he has to do, and thus engages himself again in his prescribed activities. The living beings also remain merged in the body of Mahavishnu during the period of annihilation. But as soon as there is another creation, they arise to take up their unfinished work. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad-Gita 8.18 to 20. The Lord existed before the creative energy was set in motion. The Lord is not a product of the material energy. His body is completely spiritual, and there is no difference between his body and himself. Before creation, the Lord remained in his abode, which is absolute and one. So we now will read text 22. Sa eva bhuyo nijavirya choditam swajiva mayam prakritim shishrikshitim anama rupatmani rupanamani vidit samano nusasada shastrakrit. The personality of Godhead. Translation: the personality of Godhead, again desiring to give names and forms to his parts and parcels, the living entities, place them under the guidance of material nature. By his own potency, material nature is empowered to recreate. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The living entities are parts and parcels of the Lord. They are of two varieties, namely Nitya Mukta and Nitya Baddha. The Nitya Muktas are eternally liberated souls, and they are eternally engaged in the reciprocation of transcendental loving service with the Lord in his eternal abode beyond the manifested mundane creations. But the Nitya Baddha, the eternally conditioned souls, are entrusted to his external energy, Maya, for rectification of their rebellious attitude toward the Supreme Father. Nitya Baddhas are eternally forgetful of their relation with the Lord as parts and parcels. They are bewildered by the illusory energy as products of matter, and thus they are very busy in making plans in the material world for becoming happy. They go on merrily with plans, but by the will of the Lord, both the plan makers and the plans are annihilated at the end of a certain period, as above mentioned. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad-Gita as follows. O son of Kunti, at the end of the millennium, all the living entities merge into my nature. And again, when the time of creation is ripe, I begin creation by the agency of my external energy. Bhagavad-Gita 9:7. The word bhuyaha indicates again and again. That is to say, the process of creation, maintenance, and annihilation is going on perpetually by the external energy of the Lord. He is the cause of everything. But the living beings are constitutionally the parts and parcels of the Lord and are forgetful of the sweet relation, are given a chance again to get rid of the clutches of the external energy. And to revive the living being's consciousness, the revealed scriptures are also created by the Lord. Vedic literatures are the guiding directions for the conditioned souls so they can get free from the repetition of creation and annihilation of the material world and material body. The Lord says in the Bhagavad-Gita, this created world and material energy are under my control. Under the influence of Prakriti, automatically they are created again and again, and this is done by me through the agency of my external energy. Actually, the spiritual spark living entities have no material names or forms, but in order to fulfill their desire to lord it over the material energy of material forms and names, they are given a chance to understand the real position through the revealed scriptures. The foolish and forgetful living being is always busy with false forms and false names. Modern nationalism is the culmination of such false names and false forms. Men are mad after false name and form. The form of body obtained under certain conditions is taken up as factual, and the name also taken bewilders the conditioned soul into misusing the energy in the name of so many isms. The scriptures, however, supply the clue for understanding the real position. But men are reluctant to take lessons from the scriptures created by the Lord for different places and times. For example, the Bhagavad-Gita is the guiding principle for all human beings. But by the spell of material energy, they do not care to carry out the programs of life in terms of the Bhagavad-Gita. Srimad Bhagavatam is the postgraduate study of knowledge for one who has thoroughly understood the principles of the Bhagavad-Gita. Unfortunately, people have no taste for them, and therefore they are under the clutches of Maya for repetition of birth and death. Excuse me. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagarajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namoshtite Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So wonderful verses and purports by Srila Prabhupada. So I'm just trying to go through the purports and unpack a little bit more of what Srila Prabhupada has said. Because there's so much in his purports. So much is there. So much for us to learn and take lessons from. So that in the first verse, we see that it said that the ladies of the Hastinapur were absorbed in the thought of the transcendental qualities of the Lord. Krishna has so many qualities, so many attributes, so many qualities. And in the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Rupa Goswami has explained that there are 64 transcendental attributes or qualities of Krishna. Excuse me. Of course, his qualities are actually unlimited and unfathomable. We can't get to the bottom of it. But in the Nectar of Devotion, it's described there that as living entities, the Jiva Tattva, we have a maximum of 50 of these qualities. Krishna has 64, and we can go up to a maximum of 50 of these qualities. Shiva Tattva, Lord Shiva, he has 54 of these qualities. Then Vishnu Tattva, Lord Vishnu, Narayan, they have 60 of these qualities or attributes. But we understand that Lord Krishna, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, he has an extra 4 qualities that not even Lord Vishnu has in full. So I'd like to just read through those 4 qualities. What are these special qualities that Krishna has above and beyond the living entities, above and beyond even Lord Shiva, above and beyond even Lord Vishnu and Vishnu Tattva incarnations. So number one, Krishna is the performer of wonderful activities, wonderful pastimes, especially his childhood pastimes. Number two, Krishna is always surrounded by devotees who are endowed with wonderful love of Godhead. They're completely in love with him and connected with him in a very real way. So this is special about Lord Krishna. Number three, he can attract all living entities all over the universes by playing on his flute. So his flute, that is something very unique. This special flute playing, very unique to Lord Krishna. And number four, he has a wonderful excellence of beauty. He's a supreme beautiful, which cannot be reviled anywhere in the whole of creation. So these extra four qualities that Krishna has in full is important for us to understand, because all the various Vishnu and Narayan forms of God, they do not have these four qualities in full. Only sometimes they're partially manifested. So if you want to find out more about these 64 wonderful qualities or attributes of Krishna, then I'll ask you to please refer to the Nectar of Devotion, where a full list is given in, I believe it's chapter 18 of the of the Nectar of Devotion. So Rupa Goswami, he was the one who originally wrote this Nectar of Devotion, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And he was, of course, personally instructed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had his manifest pastimes approximately 550 years ago. So Rupa and Sanatan, the brothers, they were instructed to write books on the science of Krishna consciousness and to reveal the pastime places of Lord Krishna in Vrindavan, which had become covered over since Lord Krishna's advent some 5,000 years before. So the ladies of Hastinapur, they were absorbed in talking amongst themselves about the wonderful qualities of Krishna. Absorbed. So from this word, we can understand that the ladies were situated on the platform of Raganuga Bhakti, as opposed to Sadhana Bhakti. Raganuga Bhakti is spontaneous attraction for the Lord, as opposed to Sadhana Bhakti, the regulated performance, the practice of Bhakti Yoga or devotional service, where we are situated at this present time. Srila Prabhupada emphasizes so many times throughout his books that this is a gradual process of purification. We start with sadhana bhakti, the practice of devotional service, and gradually, as the heart becomes purified, if we stick to the process, carefully avoiding the offenses to the holy name and to the devotees, we will come to the stage of spontaneous devotional service and ultimately achieve the ultimate goal, which is unalloyed, pure love of God, pure love for Lord Sri Krishna. So these ladies of Hastinapur, we can understand that they're great souls. And we can look to the Bhagavad-Gita for some guidance. Bhagavad-Gita, the 9th chapter, is entitled The Most Confidential Knowledge. The center of the Bhagavad-Gita, could say the essence of the Bhagavad-Gita, the 6 chapters that talk about Bhakti Yoga, about the personality of Godhead, in more detail, the most confidential knowledge, as Krishna says, chapter 9. So chapter 9:13, famous verse, many of us will know this verse. Mahatmanas tu mam partha, daivim prakritim ashritaha, vajanti ananyad manaso, gyatva bhutadim avyayam. Those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know Krishna, they know me, Krishna says, Krishna as a supreme personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the first sign of a Mahatma is that he's already situated in the divine nature, not under the control of material nature. So these ladies were considered great souls, because there they were talking about the pastimes of the Lord. And we can become free from the control of material nature as soon as we surrender our soul to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Being marginal potency, Prabhupada explains in the purport that we are marginal potency. As soon as as living entities, as soon as we are freed from the control of material nature, we are put under the control, under the guidance of the spiritual nature. So again, we look to Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 7, text number 14, famous verse, beautiful verse. So wonderful. Daivihiye shagunamai, mama maya durachaya, mame viye prapadyante, maya me tam tarantite. Krishna says, this divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. When under the influence of material nature, we cannot possibly overcome its influence. But Krishna clearly says, those who have surrendered unto him can easily cross beyond it. So this is the process that we're undergoing now. We're endeavoring to surrender to Krishna so that we can easily cross over this ocean of material energy that is practically impossible to overcome. Although Maya is illusion, and this Maya is false and temporary, the background of Maya is Maheshwaram, the supreme magician, Krishna, the supreme controller. So he's behind everything. So how do we recognize a person or one who is under the control of Krishna? Arjuna also asked this question in Bhagavad-Gita, how do we recognize one who is in the transcendental nature? And again in chapter 9, confidential knowledge, Krishna says, Satatam kirtiyantam mam yatantas cha dridavataha namasyantas chimam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. 9:14, following on from the previous verse. Always chanting my glories, Krishna says, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me. These great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. So the symptoms of a Mahatma are given here. Always chanting the glories of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his name, his form, his qualities, and his enchanting pastimes. Such a Mahatma has great determination, the Dridavataha mentioned in this verse, great determination to achieve the Supreme Lord, which may be in any one of the 5 transcendental rasas, as mentioned again in the Nectar of Devotion. Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. Shantaras, neutrality; Dasya, servitude; Sakya, friendship; Vatsalya, that is the maternal, paternal; and Madhurya, the conjugal relationship. So in our liberated stage, we can understand that we have one of these eternal relationships with the Lord. But at the moment it's covered over. It's there, it's just covered over at the moment. And as we advance in our Krishna consciousness and our practice of Bhakti Yoga, then this will become revealed to us. And again, Nectar of Devotion gives a lot of explanations for us to understand these in more detail. So going back to the purport, to the verses and the purport, we can understand that these ladies of Hastinapur, they must have performed so many pious activities and so many austerities in their previous lives to have the good fortune of seeing Lord Krishna face to face, associating with him and being part of his transcendental activities, his transcendental pastimes. In the verse it said, the lady said, here he is, the original personality of Godhead, the Purusha Puratanaha, as we remember him. He alone existed before the manifested creation of the modes of nature, and in him only, because he is the Supreme Lord, the Ishvara, all living beings merge, as if sleeping at night, their energy suspended. So this expression, energy suspended, not merging into the body, not becoming one with the Lord, but rather like sleeping at night. Then when they're created again, they're given various names and forms to carry on their journey of material existence in the cycle of birth and death. Why? Why is this going on? It's to fulfill their false desire, or our false desire, to lord it over the material energy. Material energy of so many material names and forms, and given another chance for this false enjoyment, as Srila Prabhupada explains it in the purport. At the same time, in the human form of life, we are given a chance to understand the real position through these revealed scriptures given to us by the bona fide spiritual master. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has made it very easy for us in this degraded age of Kali Yuga. Last week we celebrated the divine appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we heard a lot about his life and pastimes. So what did Chaitanya tell us? And that how to practice Krishna consciousness, how to attain God consciousness in this degraded age of Kali. He said, simply take to this process of chanting the holy names of the Lord with great determination, with this dridavataha, despite whatever difficulties we may face. He's given us a very simple and a very joyful process: chanting, dancing, and feasting, taking Krishna Prasad, partying. This is what he's given us in this age, a very simple process. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Madhya Lila, chapter 6, text 242, famous verse. Very important. If we don't know this verse, learn this verse. It's a good verse to know and assimilate. Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam, kalo nasjeva, nasjeva, gatir anyuta. In this age of quarrel, in this Kali Yuga, in this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of deliverance, is the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. There is no other way, there is no other way, no other way. 3 times this is repeated. So this was spoken, this particular verse was spoken when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was asked by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya what was the most important item in the execution of devotional service. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied this verse, this Harinam, Harinam, Harinam eva kevalam, saying that the most important item was the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So back to this verse and purport. Srila Prabhupada says that the ladies who were all absorbed in the thought and actions of the Lord developed the consciousness of Vedic wisdom by the grace of the Lord. They were not learned scholars in Sanskrit or study of the Vedas, but they understood the conclusion of the Vedas, the essence of Vedic wisdom. Therefore, whatever they spoke was more attractive than the Vedic hymns. And this is referring to the hymns such as the Upanishads. So many vast Vedic wisdom is there. But so much of it is indirect. Sometimes indirectly mention the Supreme Lord. But these talks of the ladies directly spoke about the Lord, about Lord Krishna, about his name, his fame, his form, his pastimes, his activities. And so these pastimes, Srila Prabhupada said, were more pleasing to the heart and therefore more valuable than the Vedic mantras and even more valuable than the benedictions of the learned brahmanas. So Srila Prabhupada explains that the ladies talking in this way, knowing Krishna to be the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, and beyond the material modes of nature, they must have heard this from authoritative sources. He stresses that an authoritative source is the only means of truly knowing about transcendental subject matters. There's no alternative. Therefore, the need for approaching a bona fide spiritual master and acting according to his instructions. Not speculating, it may be like this or it may be like that. It's so important. We're so fortunate that we have this wonderful books that's given to us by Srila Prabhupada, so we can get this authoritative knowledge. More attractive than the hymns of the Vedas. So these kinds of talks are more pleasing to the Lord, more pleasing to the heart. This direct glorification of the Lord and his pure devotees. I want to quote another verse now from the Nectar of Devotion. Referred quite a few times to the Nectar of Devotion, very important book in our line. So this is 1.1.11, which is also quoted in the Chaitanya Charitamrita in the Madhya Lila 19th chapter. Anya Bilashita Shunyam. Many of you will know this verse, famous verse, often quoted in lectures, often quoted by Srila Prabhupada. Anya Bilashita Shunyam, Jnana Kama Anavritam, Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam Bhaktirutama. When first-class devotional service develops, this is this Raganuga Bhakti that we're striving for. When first-class devotional service develops, it must be devoid of all material desires, devoid of jnana, speculative knowledge. That's knowledge that might be obtained by monistic philosophy, as Prabhupada calls it, speculative knowledge, indirect knowledge, and fruitive activity, material desires. It must be devoid of all that. And the devotee must constantly serve Krishna favorably as Krishna desires. This is, so what does Krishna want us to do? He says again in Bhagavad-Gita, Man mana bhava mad bhakto, mad yaji mam namaskuru. Offer obeisances to him from moment to moment. Engage your mind always in thinking of Krishna. See Krishna's hand in everything. See Krishna behind everything. And share that knowledge, share that wisdom of Bhagavad-Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, share that with everyone. So in that verse I quoted from the Nectar of Devotion, Anukulyena, favorable devotional service to the Lord is mentioned. To satisfy the Lord. This is our intention, not for fruitive activity, not for speculating, but to satisfy the Lord. So the bona fide spiritual master gives us instructions how to engage in devotional service. No matter what condition of life we find ourselves in, if we study the science of Krishna consciousness, apply it in a practical way, mold our life in such a way as we can always remember Krishna, to see his hand in everything, and to share this wisdom with our family, our friends, our colleagues, plant little seeds of Krishna consciousness wherever we go. And as Krishna concludes in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, if you become conscious of me, Krishna says, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditional life by my grace. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, Krishna says, you will be lost. And then again, the chapter 18, the final chapter, the conclusion of Bhagavad-Gita, 1868, he says, for one who explains this supreme secret to the devotees, pure devotional service is guaranteed. And at the end, he will come back to me. And the next verse, 1869, there is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. So again, at the end of Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna is stressing we need to share this knowledge with other people. However little bit we can, plant those seeds of Krishna consciousness. So what were these ladies of Hastinapur saying that was pleasing to Krishna? They began by recognizing that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, existing even before the material creation began, and that this material creation is sometimes manifest and sometimes not manifest. In the purport to that text 21, Srila Prabhupada gives a summary description of the creation and annihilation of this material manifestation. He explained that when Lord Brahma, the creator, the engineer of this material universe, when he sleeps at night, there is a partial annihilation of the universe. So we can get a glimpse of the vastness of the universal affairs and remember that we're tiny, insignificant creatures in the grand scheme of things. But despite all that, we all have a unique individual relationship with the Lord. And he always accompanies us as a Paramatma, as a super soul, through every species of life. He's patiently waiting and wanting us to turn to him. He is the soul of our soul. So we need to put him back into the center. At present, we put ourselves in the center, not knowing who we really are, acting under false ego, conditioned by the spell of material energy. So at the end of one night of Lord Brahma, who lives for 100 of his years, each night there's a partial dissolution of the universe. And that's only this universe that we are currently living in, this universe. And we understand from the Brahma Vimohana Leela, and that is the pastime when Lord Brahma becomes illusioned and steals away the cows and the cowherd boys. And we get this from the Krishna book, which is taken from the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So in this particular universe, it's governed by the four-headed Brahma. But it's said that in other manifested universes, there are Brahmas with 10 heads, with 100 heads, with 1,000 heads. In the universe, it's much more vast than this one that we live in. All this is explained in great detail in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is why it's such an important, authoritative literature for us to carefully study. So after 100 years of his life, it's described that there is a complete annihilation of the entire universe. All the material elements merge back into the body of Mahavishnu. And all the material, that is the external energy of the Lord, this earth, water, fire, air, ether, the external elements. Lord Krishna separated material energies. So they all go back in, as well as all the jivas, the living entities that are inhabiting various different types of bodies, the humans, the demigods, the plants, animals, insects, aquatics. They also all merge into the body of Mahavishnu. So these living entities, that they're known as the marginal energy of the Lord, because although they are spiritual, they're part of the internal energy of the Lord. They have a tendency to become covered over by the external energy of the Lord. So all the living entities remain asleep in the body of Mahavishnu until another creation of the material universe takes place. So there's a constant cycle of creation, maintenance, annihilation of the material manifestation. So it's described in the purport that Mahavishnu is lying on the causal ocean. By his breathing, all the universes are generated as tiny seeds, and gradually, they develop into huge, gigantic forms. So many planets, so many universes. All these vast universes expand, just like a banyan tree expands from a tiny seed into so many banyan trees. And it's explained in the Brahma Samhita that, as Prabhupada quoted from that verse, that this Mahavishnu is a plenary portion, an expansion from the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, or Govindam Adi Purusham, Tamaham Bhajami, as we chant every morning when we have the deity greetings and we chant those beautiful prayers. Brahma Samhita is such an important work as well, literature for us to study. So all the Brahmas exist only as long as the Lord is exhaling, breathing out. He breathes in all the universes, all the material elements, and living beings are sucked back into the body of Mahavishnu. He breathes out, all the universes again become manifest. We can hardly imagine the vastness of this. We cannot calculate this with our tiny brain. And this is again corroborated in Bhagavad-Gita 9.7-9.8. At the end of the millennium, all material manifestations enter into my nature, says Krishna. And at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I again create. This whole cosmic order is under me, Krishna says. Under my will, it is automatically manifested again and again. And under my will, it is annihilated at the end. So all this knowledge we find from the Vedic literatures, not by speculating or trying to work it out, trying to analyze the material elements. We cannot fully understand the absolute truth with our limited intelligence. It's described that as living beings, we are covered over by the material elements. We have 4 defects: imperfect senses, subject to illusion, the cheating propensity, and we make mistakes. So every living entity in this material realm is covered over by these 4 defects as long as we have a material body. So mundane knowledge, empirical knowledge as it's called, is ascending knowledge. Each generation learns from the next and passes on their knowledge. But Vedic knowledge, Vedic wisdom, that is different. That is called aparusha. It is descending knowledge. It is given to us from a higher source. It's our manual for living, how to live in this world, but even more importantly, how to get out of this world, how to return back home, back to Godhead, to our original state of being, which is like, in quality, the Supreme Lord Krishna himself. Sat, eternal, Chit, full of knowledge, Ananda, full of bliss. Same in quality, but different in quantity. He is the original source of all that be, and we are eternally his parts and parcels. We can only come to our original state when we recognize our original connection with Krishna and act in that eternal relationship. So actually, I've just realized that time is ticking away and it's already 9:15. And I think we should be finishing soon. So I had a few more things that I was going to talk about, but we've run out of time. So I'll just come to a conclusion and a summary. So in this chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, we see Krishna is leaving Hastinapur to return to Dwaraka shortly after the Battle of Kurukshetra. The ladies of Hastinapur are discussing amongst themselves the glories of Lord Krishna. Even though they're not Vedic scholars, they're fully aware of the transcendental nature of Krishna and are fully absorbed in talking about him. And as we said, the talks are more pleasing than the recitation of the Vedic hymns and mantras, because the name, fame, form, and pastime are completely transcendental to this material realm. Everything about Krishna is absolute. So by absorbing ourselves in topics of Krishna, we can taste the absolute personality of Godhead. He is fully present in these talks. So as living entities, we have a choice. We can continue in the repetition of birth and death, round and around through various species of life, suffering and enjoying the results of our previous activities, becoming more and more entangled in the intricacies of karma. Or we can turn to the Lord, who is seated in the heart of every living entity as our eternal witness, our guide, and our friend. So let us take every opportunity to make the best use of this human form of life and absorb ourselves in the name, fame, form, and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. So I'd like to just finish off now with a quote that again comes from the 18th chapter of the Nectar of Devotion, which gives a lovely description of Krishna. It's taken from the Krishna Karnamrita, which is written by Srila Bilvamangala Thakur. And it's actually a beautiful meditation. So I just want to finish on that beautiful note here. And Bilvamangala, he is saying, I am eagerly waiting to see that boy of Vrindavan, whose bodily beauty is captivating the whole universe, whose eyes are always bounded by black eyebrows and expanded like lotus petals, and who is always eagerly glancing over his devotees and therefore moving slightly here and there. His eyes are always moist. His lips are colored like copper, and through those lips there comes a sound vibration which drives one madder than a mad elephant. I want so much to see him in Vrindavan. Hare Krishna, thank you very much. If anyone has any reflections, any additions or corrections, then please unmute and share with us all. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So thank you very much for allowing me to speak today on this on this Mother's Day. I wish you all a beautiful day in Krishna consciousness. Please take shelter of Srila Prabhupada. Read these books, study these books, share them with others. Let's keep ourselves strong in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Janaki Mataji, for beautiful class. I request all the devotees to share their experiences, or if they have any questions, please come forward.
Everybody's stunned into silence or asleep, and that's okay. Hare Krishna.
Everyone seems to be fully satisfied, Mataji.
Happy Mother's Day, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. So thank you very much. Have a lovely day, and I'll see many of you later at the Krishna, our Krishna program at the Avanti Field School, hopefully. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Haribol.
Krishna, thank you for a wonderful class.
Haribol, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mataji. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. Happy Mother's Day to all your family and friends.
Thank you, Mother Janaki. That was lovely. Thank you so much. Happy Mother's Day to you too. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Haribol.
Sure.
And we're all called Mataji, aren't we, all the ladies? So we can, even people who maybe have not had children themselves, they're still called Mataji in the Krishna consciousness movement. So we need to be respected as selfless mothers too. Haribol.